Steve Richards, and this is another training from the CEO Nation. And Seth, man, I appreciate you coming on. We're going to do a case study interview today, and we do a lot of these trainings. We've done more in the past. We've been a little away from it. I had a lot of travel at the end of the year, beginning of the year, and we're going to be doing more and more of these. And by the way, this is getting pumped into the Facebook group right now. And so if you want to catch the replay, it'll be in there. But also, if you're in Facebook watching us later or seeing it right now, you could have got on live. And so we're going to make sure we have 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. And we'll get on. We're going to cover a topic in the next like 30 to 45 minutes or so. And I'll introduce what that is here in a minute. But I want you guys to understand a couple different things. And so the CEO Nation, if you're new to it, is all about helping the hustler die. So business owners who think they own a business, who actually just own a job, and you actually work for your business instead of it working for you. And it takes your energy, it takes your money, it takes your time, and it kind of sucks all the things out of you that you started the business to get, right? And one thing I really enjoy about you, Seth, I feel like our coaching sessions get a little longer than they normally do with other people, because the first half hour is always like, we're talking about health and nutrition and all kinds of cool stuff, or psychology or whatever. I really like all that. It's interesting how intertwined all it is in this. It's not just killing the hustler and becoming the CEO of a business, and actually having a business is so mental, and so much of your mentality is driven by your spirit and driven by your health. And if you're worn out and tired, and like, it's just really hard to stay focused. And most of us already know 2/3 or 3/4 or 99% of everything we need to know. We just don't know when to do what. We don't know what to do now and what not to do now. And we only need to be focusing on one or two things at a time. And so in the CEO Nation, what I try to do with the podcast and with any of these trainings, and we have a couple products, and I have a private coaching practice, and a lot of it is just really trying to help people understand how to get out of their own way. And just as much as teaching someone and coaching someone on certain things to do, a lot of times I'm advising or mentoring on what not to do. And so if you're new to the CEO Nation, we've got a Facebook group, and everything, by the way, that I'm getting ready to tell you is linked. I'm going to put it in the chat, is on a site. Let me put it out here in the chat. It's theCEONation.com/links. So the CEO Nation, typing it in here for you guys, /links. You can connect to, so copy and paste that out of there. Connect to our podcast. You can connect to get notified about future trainings. You connect to the Facebook group. I believe my social media links are on there. And if anybody watching this feels like I can help them in their business, there's a strategy session link to set up to talk about coaching. That's what I'm most passionate about in the business. We do a lot of other little things, but like the hours that I spend each week privately coaching people is what's fulfilling for me. So with that, out of recent sessions with Seth, I was just realizing, like, man, that it was so powerful to watch someone. And I thought you were 26, by the way, for some reason. When I asked you, you're like, no, I'm 23. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a big difference to you. You're like, that's not, to me it is, because 23 is still so close to, like, I don't think people are even like adults until 21.
It's a big difference.
Yeah.
This is 20,204 days until my statistical death. So
yeah. Well, I'm 47. Don't even know. But I'm gonna live to be 100, 120, so I'm not as worried about.
Fair enough.
But when we were talking, man, like, and I want you to give everybody here in a minute, like, just a 2-minute overview of kind of like how you got in real estate and what your business, basically what you do and kind of where you're at. But before I do that, I want to set it up. So for all you guys watching, so Seth, I just told you this the other day too, like, he was probably more on the bottom end of production and experience for anybody I would coach. In fact, he was in his first year, finishing his first year, which actually was only like 9 or 10 months. I think at the time we talked, he wasn't even a full year in. and you'd only done a couple $100,000 of revenue. And by only, I'm just saying from the standards of who I'm usually best at coaching is someone more in the like, maybe not current business, but they have the experience of doing more, several 100,000 or 500,000 or up to a couple million. And usually someone who's in the 3 to 500, I'm helping them figure out how to hire correctly because they made some bad hires already, but they've already been hiring.
Right.
I'm helping them fix their marketing because they're investing 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a month in marketing and 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a month in a team. And they got 10, 20, 30, 40 grand going out and they're trying to bring in 100, 150, 200. And that's more of who I'm used to coaching. But you and I just connected because of a boardroom, a mastermind connection. I gave you some free time and I enjoyed talking to you. And I was like, damn, man, this guy is like, for being young and what you were doing, you had like a million things going on. And I was like, a bunch of them were pretty right. Like I think you just had so much going on that you were like kind of lost.
Yep.
To focus on a couple things at a time and get the right pieces in the right place. And I was like, when you asked if I could coach you, I really thought this could really work. And it has. Like you've been a great, great student. And flying forward and having problems now that a lot of people don't have until they're like 35, 40 years old after they've been in business for like 5, 10 years. They don't usually start a business till more like 30, 25 to 30, like they're 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years older than you. And then it takes them 4 to 6 to 8 years to kind of get to where you are. And that's been powerful. So the reason I set all this up is I think this will speak to a lot of people that are watching this. You're building a team, you're getting out of the day-to-day of your real estate business. Your revenue is just, again, tripling is probably low estimate for where it's going to be this year from last year. And you're already building a team and it's going so fast to be in your second year, halfway through your second year. That's why Seth is here for everyone that's watching this. So really quickly, can you just give everybody just spend a few minutes and just kind of give your backstory of gosh, you were in high school 5 years ago, finishing high school, what's the last 3 or 4 years been like? Why'd you get in real estate and what are you doing? Give everybody a little list of summary so they can understand.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2017. Graduated high school in 2017, and in high school I was like a troubled, angsty student. So school wasn't hard for me, but I missed more days in my senior year than I attended because it wasn't something didn't have my head in the game. Didn't seem like a game that I wanted to win, and so had odd job, short period of times. Had a friend that was a realtor, right, a little bit older than me, around my age, and I was like, looked like he was having success. So I was like, hey man, what are you doing? He ended up introducing me to his mentor, who then became my mentor. And so for 2 years I was a real estate agent. I think I would have been licensed when I was 19. And so I think I sold 52 or 54 houses my first year as a real estate agent. And then I sold 50 houses the second year. And so that would have been 2020 in that second year. And I was just burnt. I was like, I didn't see any future for scale.
Hey, really quick, dude, let me interrupt you. How did you do 54 deals in your first year when you were like 19?
So
Where'd you get the deals?
What's that?
Where'd you get the deals? By the way, guys, he's in northern Indiana. Was that in Fort Wayne where you did that?
That was in Fort Wayne. So those were internet leads. So I mean, the biggest thing was that I had the blessing of being underneath the top selling agent at the time, certainly the fastest growing agent, probably the most skilled with sales. And I literally told him at one point, I was like, I would work for you for free. Like, I don't care about the money. I want the knowledge. And like, it was very good. I made him a lot of money. He gave me the knowledge. Like the transaction happened. And a lot of those were buyer leads. So they were like from Zillow or realtor.com, and there was a script, and I got really good at it. Like, I knew I just knew it like the back of my hand, just like I do today, speaking with any seller. And so that's where that kind of transferred really easy. But what the problem was is that the amount of revenue that was coming into this business was not enough to scale. I got to 2020 and I tried having showing agents and assistants, transaction coordinators. I ended up hiring virtual assistants, which was invaluable. I tried like I was doing blast marketing campaigns to get listings, all stuff that's translated into what I do today. But there wasn't enough revenue to spread between everybody. And the average sales price in Fort Wayne, Indiana wasn't enough to support the infrastructure that I wanted to build out to build the business that I wanted with my current split. And so I was at a mastermind in 2020, and I was in mastermind with Cody Barton, and he was talking about his incredible success. And I want to say he was like 26 at the time. And I was like, wait, what do you do? And he told me he was wholesaling. And I was like, wow, I'd heard of wholesaling. And I actually approached my mentor in the realtor business. And I asked him about it. And he's like, oh, no. Those guys go to jail. They're like, those are the bad guys. And so I trusted what he said and focused on what I was doing at the time. And I was like, okay. And then I heard it again from Cody, and I had a friend, Luis at the time, who had been watching all these YouTube videos, and Luis was bothering me. He's like, man, I'm going to get into wholesaling. So I was like, all right, I'll go do it. And so I got a contract, went and I had a seller, got under contract. First one that I tried. And then we made like 15 on that. And then second one, like we just like put our heads down, because like there was nothing that like I wasn't taking no for an answer. It was like, this is going to happen. I wanted out of being a realtor. I hated it. So, and I still do. Like, I do not like it. Respect to them, I suppose, especially if someone who's like had lots and lots of success in that business, because I can't stand it. So, but everything was a blessing. It was meant to be. All those skills led to perfectly translating to being the perfect recipe for me to build this business, minus the KPIs and actual like business like infrastructure systems. But when it comes to for me being able to be that acquisitions agent inside of the business, to be my own transaction coordinator, to understand title work going right into real estate, it was a very easy transition. I already understood everything. I'd already seen over 100 transactions.
Yeah. So you're a traditional, for the most part, traditional wholesale operation. I know you're working on a few other things and some things I'm trying to stop you from buying restaurants and other nonsense that you're trying to do already. But
successfully, might I add. Yeah, successfully. You are stopping me. Yeah.
But there might be some wholesale partnerships and some like subject twos and things like that. But predominantly what we're talking about today is business in general, but have a whole business, Northern Indiana. You said it's like 75 to $250,000 houses, right? I mean, in that range, like just under 100, maybe up to a couple hundred or a little higher sometimes. Is that about the range of price?
Yeah, and that would be the average. Like that's average across the full range. So typically, and when I was a real estate agent, a lot of times 150 was entry level, right?
Yeah.
And so that really was my average sales price was like 112,000 probably the first year. So I'm doing a lot of like deals, but like the revenue was just not there. So, and I'd say, I don't know. Are you asking that just to get an idea of like what the market looks like?
Just let people know like what a market's like. Yeah, just letting people know they're watching this. The reality is there'll be like more people will watch this later than now, because we got a couple emails and I think I posted like once. But I wanted people to be on here, but this is something that we'll utilize over time to help people and be like, you should watch this, like when it's a good thing for them. And but as people watch this later, the vast majority of the people that connect into our group or come from real estate. And so like I knew that would resonate with them. And so let's dig into some things to try to stay on track. I think everyone's got a good understanding that like you're way ahead of the game at your age, like you've had fast success. So before we jump into the first of the three things that we're going to break down for people, I do want to say this. A couple of you guys that I'm watching that are logged in right now are probably like, yeah, like I'm older and I didn't like, Seth has something I didn't have, or I want to be really careful, or anyone watching this later, like you did get off to a faster start and have quicker success than most people. But like what you're doing right now is nothing that anyone who gets up and running can't do. Like, I know that was kind of a double negative. Let me try to say that better.
Well,
Like,
no, I mean, I get it.
now that everybody can do, like what's helping you triple your business this year or quadruple it.
Right.
It's not rocket science is what I'm saying, right?
I think my conscientiousness comes from like my early awareness of my mortality and realizing it can, like nothing's guaranteed, and really badly not wanting to have any regrets. So it's like I constantly want to find out the next improvement. And anyone can do that. Like I think it has nothing to do with like intelligence or anything. It's obsession. So that's what I think.
So let's dig in. So if you guys are taking notes, here's number one. So we probably had 10 things that are going really well, I think, Seth, and different things you've learned. But we broke these down into three different things, and I think they're in a good order here. But the first thing we want to talk about out of the three, if you guys are taking notes, is clarity and focus. And there's two components to this I think we'll break down, although this could be a 3-day seminar on its own. There was two key things that I try to do with every client that I think we successfully did with you. Number one is getting really clear on what and who you currently are.
Yep.
And I'm going to let you elaborate on this after I kind of set it up. So most people have like a couple good months mixed in with a couple bad months, and they're like, they hit their first $100,000 month and they're like, oh, I got $1 million company. And we're like, almost never do you have $1 million company yet, just because you had a couple $83,000 months, or you hit $100,000. If one of the big things we do is there's a certain process that we put together to help clients basically look backwards and do some math. And it's really basic stuff, but it allows you to figure out who you are right now, not flog yourself for all the things that you're like being too hard on yourself about. Like some of us will be really harsh and not pat ourselves on the back for the success we have had. We'll also take for granted what we have gotten done. And at the same time, we'll turn a blind eye to some of the stark reality of like what's not really working. And we'll think we're in a better place than we are. Or if this resonates with anybody watching or listening, we'll basically be really good at masterminds about telling people how we plan to do business or the way we think we're doing business, but is it really what's happening on a day-to-day basis? And the only way to get to that is through numbers. I mean, if you can't, you got to go back and use all your fingers and toes and sticky note. If you can't count up how many leads and opportunities and sales pitches and how many sales or closings or whatever your business is, if you can't somehow count up the amount of opportunity, the amount of sales pitches you made, and the amount of like agreements, contracts, closings, whatever your business is, if you can't figure that out and how much money it costs to do it and how much money came in the net between the two, and get that divided out by figure out what happens on an average monthly basis for your company, you're not clear about who you are. And then secondly, there's focus, the clarity and focus. The focus piece is once you have that, now a lot of us have this fuzzy target because we don't really know what we want. Like we want to do 100 deals a year. We want to have a $1 million business. We want to get to 10 million in revenue. We want to get out of the day-to-day of our business. Like these general things, or we see what other people have, but we don't understand like what we really want. Like why does our business exist? What do we need out of it? And what value do we want to provide to the world? And get really focused on that. And once we have that focus of like looking forward and we have the clarity, like looking backward, now we have this like runway where we can make really good decisions.
Yep.
Right? So like let's spend a few minutes talking about that. If you guys, we're gonna make this interactive, guys. Like just use the chat or the Q&A, and I'll pop in there and we'll bring these up. But I want you to talk about what that's meant for you, like decision making wise, or like even thinking about the future. Like that might be a good place to start. Like, because we had a thing this year where you were like, oh, I'm going to go from 200 grand to like 2 million. And I was like, no, you're not. Right. Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so KPIs. And so last year I had in my first year, my goal was 900,000. There was no rhyme or reason why it was 900,000. I think I just thought it sounded nice. And believe it or not, I did not hit it. And I knew from hearing Cody Barton and Matt Beard speak at masterminds that I've been to, and others, that KPIs are what I needed to know. And for some reason, it just was something that wasn't clicking for me. And I would go and ask them questions like I was speaking with you about not too long ago. And I'd ask them stupid questions because like I didn't know the right ones to ask. And like I didn't have even the base of my KPIs put together so that I could go ask intelligent questions. And so when I got stupid answers for my stupid questions, I'd be frustrated because I'd be like, what am I supposed to do? And so I left the mastermind in November and I was like, I am going to master KPIs. And 2 weeks later, I met you on a Zoom. So, so, that was incredible. But just like you're saying, these are like the check engine lights on a car. It's like how much air is in my tire, like how long until I need to refill the gas tank, like how many leads can each of my salespeople handle, how many calls do they have to make, how long does that take for them to make it in order to get a closed deal. And now, okay, how long until I'm at capacity? Okay, now it's the right time for me to turn up the lead flow because now we can handle it. It's like, okay, now I know we need to hire an acquisitions person. Okay, my goal is to increase the quality of lead. And so they're spending more time speaking with less people. And so what do I need to do for that? Okay, I'm going to introduce this qualifier. And then what kind of metrics can I use to track whether or not this qualifier is being productive? And so what I did last year is, like you were saying in the beginning, is I had a lot of things that were good and I knew they were good. And that's what kept me going. Like and they're not my ideas, but like everything that I've done for the most part, at least that I can think of, it's not my idea. I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's just like, what's working here? Okay, I'm going to take this piece. What's working for this person? I'm going to take that piece. And I was doing stupid stuff too, but there wasn't really any reason. I didn't really understand why I would be doing these things. And so I'd buy data for this and I'd hire a bunch of people for this. And actually, when I first got into the business, I hired 4 cold callers at one time at $9 an hour. And so our lead flow was just like off the chart. And I ended up actually getting into a depression from it. And because I saw all of these, all of this was going on. I was working all the time. And then the results are still so unpredictable because it was like running a race and being blind and also not being able to feel where my body's at. So it's like, I'm exerted, but it doesn't feel like I'm moving. And I'm in some sort of race that I don't know anything that's going on around me. And so the difference now being, then there still are times like this is still a process for me. There's still times where it's like, okay, I have blind spots. I have blind spots right now, but not nearly as many. And it's like I, to a level, know more of what I didn't know before, whereas before I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I was just with brute force pushing ahead, throwing shit at the wall to see what would stick, and then just hoping that there is enough money in my bank account at the end of the month for us to make it into the next month. And
And to try the next crazy idea you're going to try, right?
Yes,
Like,
yeah, and switch markets and like I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try this market. Like, oh, the wind's blowing that way today. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do that.
so for you to be like tripling and probably potentially quadrupling the business this year or more, actually, um, are you working on more things or less things? Like, what do you focus?
Less.
Like, yeah, you're focused on way less things, right? Like, it's down to 5 or 6 activities generate 3 or 4 results, right? Like, a couple marketing activities generate leads, and then one basically qualifying activity creates sales opportunities, and sales pitches create some contracts, and contracts create the ability to go have some closings. Like, there's 4 or 5 activities that generate 3 or 4 results. And I think what's interesting is you've done a really good job with this. And so for you guys that are taking notes, to kind of wrap this first thing up, number one, remember, if you don't have a clear target, like if you don't have focus on where you're headed, like you are gonna, like you said, Seth, the wind's gonna blow, or you're gonna go to a mastermind, you're gonna be like, oh, dude, I want to do what that guy's doing, or like I should do that. And so without that clear focus, you can't build. It's really hard to have the determination you had and not really have a reason why. That's probably your age, quite frankly, dude. Like, because you're just hell bent on doing something. But like usually as we get older and we have kids and we're married and all these things happen, it takes a significant like reason in our life to focus the way, like otherwise, like a lot of times it takes like serious mortality to like focus on your health, or it takes like real financial disaster to get serious about like
Well, and
quitting.
that's one interesting thing is I actually think I've been blessed with just enough of those things. Like I've been blessed with just enough of those things. And if I had like I don't know why, to be honest, and that's something maybe I should think about, but there's certainly it's been many little moments with these small perspective shifts where I realize things happen for me and not against me. And then realizing that creates an opportunity. Like whether my belief is delusional or it's reality, it doesn't matter because the effect for me is it's the same. Like it doesn't get me down. In fact, like where's my opportunity here? Like that's what I'm looking for. Tony Robbins says, what is it called? You look for red cars, you see red cars, you look for white cars, you see white
Your
cars.
reticular activating, it's your RAS,
Yep,
your
that's it.
reticular. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So when your brain, when you start thinking about the right things, it doesn't make it magically appear. If you guys have all watched The Secret and and people think, oh, I dreamed of money and it showed up in my mailbox. No, like the
You see it.
reticular, all the stuff is all there. Like in the quantum realm that like we live in, everything's already all there. We just don't know. Like we're
Yep.
not looking for it. We don't know it's there. We don't know how to see it. So getting focused really, really is important. And what I mean by that is like, I want to make whatever, 500,000 or 5 million or 50,000, or I want to make whatever money. And I'm willing to work X amount of hours to get that. And I'm going to produce a certain kind of value to the world during that time that I work. And I'm going to invest a certain amount of money coming in people and marketing, whatever I have to kind of make this thing work. But there's a very specific reason that you want that time and money. It's not to like for your family. Like if your big why is your family is not deep enough. It's like, oh, you want to spend time with your family? Not deep enough. I literally want to own a vacation home that becomes a generational tradition for my family to go, once a quarter. And while we're there, I'm going to share whatever the best stuff I learned about life with my kids and relatives that I can to help them have better lives. And we're going to do it in a really cool location. And that's going to cost me, 50 grand a year to own this place, or 100 grand, whatever it is. Right. So that's part of the money I got to make. And I got to be able to leave for a week every quarter. Okay.
You think it's appropriate for me to share my why? Like, have we even
Yeah, if you
never
want
gone
to.
into that? Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go into it.
I'm
So
trying to keep it to like the 2-minute version so we can, because I want to get to the other topics for everybody.
2 minute version. I think it's extremely important because there are different paths that I could have gone down. And that's why I think it's important. So it means to me that somebody even on the darkest path can make a decision to change. And so in high school, 14 years old, my dad died from a heroin overdose. In high school, I started using hard drugs. And then that's the path that I was on until I was about 17 or 16. And then I
Wow.
made a decision. So then I made a decision to switch from that. And so that's that mortality, like not only from having someone close to me die, but then having like my own mortality, because I actually had a like psychotic episode on drugs, was arrested. I thought I was dead. Like, it's crazy story. But it happened for me and not against me. Like, it happened exactly like it couldn't have gone any better. I wouldn't go back and change a single thing. Everything I suffered just the right amount so that I could learn from it. And because of that, my why is like this burning fire, like that I am going to change the world, because there's absolutely no option. Like that's why I'm here. So
Awesome.
I've been looking for it though. I've been looking for it the whole time.
That's really cool, dude. And you're right. Like, your tests become your testimony kind of thing, right? And so, like, that's what I was saying. A lot of times most of the people in the CEO Nation group, this is most entrepreneurs out there, like, not most, but there's many of them that didn't, even if they grew up in really hard areas of the country and like had single parents or no parents, or they think it's, I mean, we're really blessed in America, because pretty much everybody's,
Yep.
there's a few Canadians and some South Americans and people, and maybe a few other country Australians or whatever in our group. But like, man, like the worst places in America are still like, there's 90% of the population outside of America would change change places.
Right.
And that's really good perspective. So what happens is, good is the enemy of great. And until you have some really bad stuff happen, like, it's really hard to try to go after great, because good isn't that bad. Like,
Right.
having food to eat and a roof over your head and being somewhat comfortable and being able to take a few vacations, and having a 401k, like, that is a dream killer. And so, to kind of wrap this first thought for you guys, getting super focused about where you need to go and being realistic. I'm not going to dive into this because we got to stay on time. We're a little behind now, but like, so many people, and we've got a boardroom mastermind coming up next week. It's going to happen. I'm running a room, and I know it's going to happen several times. Some dudes are going to be in there and they're like, yeah, we did $500,000 last year, so we thought we could do 5 million this year. Or even the ones that did $1 million and they think they're going to do 2 million. Like, it is not normal or easy to double your business. Like, what you're doing is not normal at all. Like, nothing you're doing is super like rocket science or crazy, but the result that you're getting is not normal. And so we have to be realistic about where we're headed. So we can have the biggest vision in the world for down, but we got to understand, like, we're not going to get there tomorrow. Like, and what happens is, if we say we've done a couple $100,000 here and we want to do 2 million, and we think we're going to make some big commitment, we're going to blow our business up. The problem is when you set your sights so high, and a lot of people do this, they're like, man, I set my sight really high because I thought if I failed, I would still land higher. So if anybody listening has heard that, like, if you shoot for the moon and you miss, you land in the stars or whatever. Like,
See, I actually did that, and I ended it with more debt than I had before. So
yeah, it's not, the problem is this. I like the idea of overshooting a little bit, but you have to be stretchingly realistic. Write this down if you guys are taking notes on this first thing about focus. Focus in on where you want to land and be stretchingly realistic about it. Because if you're not, you start doing crazy shit that you shouldn't do. Like, you hire too many people, you buy too much data, you run too much marketing, you buy too big of an office. Like, you commit to all these things because you think you're going to do something you're not. And a lot of us who are out there running, doing several 100,000 or even $1 million or 2 million, if you could just do the same money this year that you did last year and increase your profit margin significantly and decrease the amount of time you invest in the business, that's a humongous win.
Yep.
And so that's one thing focus can do. And the other thing is clarity. So if focus like brings your target, for you, it reins it in so you have a better place to shoot from. Clarity allows you to have like stable feet on the ground while you're taking that shot towards a target. Because clarity helps you be realistic about who you are, where you are, what's really going on, what the opportunities and threats are. And I know that's really helped a lot. And one of the main things we do with almost all of our clients that immediately makes a gigantic impact is it's amazing to me when I ask everybody like what their, what do you think your average month is? Expenses, income, leads, sales, conversion, like tell me all that. And everybody comes up with this crazy shit. And then there's always all this like, well, if this one person wouldn't have quit, and if this one marketing campaign would have been different, they have all these justifications and these adjustments. I'm like, no, man, it's just looking backwards a little bit and using some basic math, and you are who you are. And one of my mentors taught me this. It's kind of funny. Like, I don't know if this will resonate with everybody, but being honest about who you are and where you are is really important. And so when you get into coaching and training and things I've gotten into, like public speaking and stuff, it's funny because, and luckily I've lost a lot of weight, gotten in better shape in the last like 6 months to a year. I feel better being on camera now. But there was a point in time where I was like, God, man, I don't look good. I got a double chin. Like and one of my mentors was like, you got to get used to putting a camera on yourself, because like, however you look is how you look. However you sound is how you sound. Like, that's who you are. You can't be somebody you're not. And if you're inauthentic, people will realize it in your business. You got to realize what your real return on marketing spend. What's your real expense, your real profit margin? How does your marketing really work? How good are you really at sales? What's your real opportunity? And that's the clarity piece. So to kind of spin that into the second thing, and the other two, I think, are going to be a lot quicker to cover. The second big piece that we talked about, I think, kind of builds into the first a little bit, but I know it builds into the third one here. But it's building a team correctly. And so this one will be careful not to derail the timing on, because I think we could spend a lot of time on it. But let's just talk a little bit about a few of the pieces you've learned about building a team the right way.
Culture and values. If I had to summarize that, but then in addition to that is something that's been a magnificent help is the team architects test. So hires that I've made in the past, I have been more like on hunch. So it's like, what's your favorite donut to eat for breakfast? Be like, okay, perfect. I like jelly donuts too. I'm going to go ahead and hire you. And so it's like nothing based on like actual skill. I'd have them take disc tests and stuff like that. But honestly, like when I don't have a deep enough understanding of disc to see, I mean, like maybe like with compliance and dominance, it's like, should I hire someone that's like steady and compliant for a cold calling position? Probably not, but that's not like the level of like the analytical level that your test has been able to provide. Just yesterday, we're working on bringing on someone new in acquisition, and like being able to have them take that test, have them score highly. And then when I hear you read back what's inside that test, I'm like, it's like you're a magician just reading this person's personality, telling me all of their flaws in detail. And I'll picture in my head something they did that annoyed me. And then you'll tell me what they're good at. And then I'll picture in my head a memory of something that they did that impressed me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, it's spot on. And so, but it's not things I necessarily recognize on the surface. So that test like reveals a lot, because it's, it's like a 45-minute test.
So, so we're talking, for those of you that don't know, we're talking about a personality and cognition assessment. So what you're getting at is being able to, before you bring somebody on, is to actually understand how their brain works, right?
Yep.
Let's talk about the other half of that equation for this second thing about building the team correctly. Is that you actually know what they're going to have to do, number one. So when you hire them, you have like a real job role in mind, instead of like, well, I think I'm hiring them for this, but I might have them help me with this. Oh, and I was going to have them do sales, but I don't have my leads worked out. So what I'm going to have is have them do old leads first and do lead management. And then I'm going to promote them into this. And then if they're good, I'm going to have them train the next guy and become a manager. And I see that all the time. We're like, whoa, no, like you can't, most normal people that are out there that want to come work for you can't come into this chaotic, I got you for one thing, but I'm going to have you start with another. But then my whole idea is to promote you to this third thing. And like, this is never going to work. Right. And so understanding the actual job roles, if you guys are taking deep notes on this, to build a team correctly, is the number one piece of that, is actually know what activities that need to be done by a certain job that should produce certain results. And if you aren't really clear on that, you need to go do this stuff for months and learn it. Like you were hustling and doing all this, and you didn't even I mean, the whole, not first year or two of doing all this, you learned a lot about real estate, but like this stuff takes, we were talking about this in a call like yesterday or the day before, like it takes years to be really good at something. Like to figure out all the nuances of being good at different parts of the job, like this is where coaching comes in, or masterminds, or like YouTube University. Like you got to absorb this somewhere. Like what job roles do I need? What activities? And then that's when I start to use like a personality and assessment test to say, okay, because I know what I need them to do when they show up. Like I'm not hiring an acquisition guy to get contracts. If you're in real estate, I'm hiring him to engage clients and to build rapport and gain trust and make offers and negotiate
Yeah.
to get like, I'm
I'm gonna
hiring
put that
him to do all
on a
that.
quote and like buy a canvas, put that up in the office. Just like need to drill that. I'm gonna get contracts today. That's totally what's going on in the office.
You can't
It's
put a
like,
gun
no,
to someone's head and get a contract.
yeah, build rapport
They
so that
can't.
even like if they decide to sell in 2 weeks and you forget to call them back, you're still the person they call.
Yeah. And so getting really clear. And so I think another thing that I think you would agree with, Seth, is on the back end. So this is really deep, but get this, guys, if you're taking notes. So the second thing we're talking about here is building a team correctly. So number one is understanding what roles you need. A whole nother thing we're not going to talk about today is you can't hire everybody at once. If you can't clearly focus on like what you want and clearly understand where you are and draw a line between the two, it's really hard to figure out who to hire first. And you think you need everyone, or you think you can't afford it, or you don't want anybody yet because you don't think you can afford it. Like you got to have the number one thing we talked about to effectively do the second thing, which is build a team. You got to actually know where you're headed and be really clear. And then you're like, oh, I obviously need this role right now more than I need this other one. So let's get that one figured out first. But this is, I think, been really important for you where you're at right now, because you've gone against some of the hiring advice I've given you. I know that, because you're like, well, I know this person's not perfect right now because they're too independent, they're too unstructured, and they're going to be a pain in my ass at some point, but they're willing to work really hard. So you go in eyes wide open, knowing this is a period of time. But here's the second piece to building a team correctly, or third piece, I'm sorry. So we talked about correctly identifying the roles. So if you guys don't have perfectly, maybe not perfect, but well-written job roles and understand what activities that job needs to do, it's really hard to do the second thing we talked about, which is like know what personality traits I'm looking for so I can assess people that I'm going to hire. Thirdly, though, is if you don't know what results should be coming from those activities that job is doing, it's really hard to manage them and hold them accountable. Because like what will happen is, and I know this happened to you, and maybe you can elaborate on this, you hire someone and they're doing some of it, but not all of it. And you're like, I don't know, should I fire him? Should I promote him? Should I train him? Should I kick him in the ass? Like, should I like high five him? I don't even know what to do. I don't know if I should keep him. I don't know if they're worth it. I don't know if I'm making money on them. Like, and so
Metrics.
right. And so being able to look at the results that you expect from the activities that you train and coach them on is another key piece. And so like, I feel like that's eye-opening for you right now, right?
So, well, no, so it actually is. And so the whole thing you just said is kind of like a little I told you so story, because I still, like you said, I'm doing things that because of my impatience in the past, hired more people at once than perhaps I should have, which then took away focus that I was previously giving to my acquisitions department, which that focus that I was giving to them was leading to it was the leading indicator to the lagging results that I was achieving. And so I am now anticipating that probably over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to experience a little bit of a dry spell as a result of that attention being taken away. And by dry spell, I just mean like our number of closed sales per week is probably gonna dwindle. So like the good thing is that I'm aware of that. That's super cool. But also like you told me so. You told me so.
That's not why I brought it up. But
I know.
But we all do this stuff where it's like, I know you're gonna do it anyway, right? Like, but when you're gonna attempt to do something and learn it the hard way, which is what we're talking about, at least when you go in with some good advice and you know what could go wrong, you can still learn from it, you can still benefit from it, you can still like cut it off faster. And sometimes we just got to do stuff. Listen, here's a great analogy to end this one on. When I first moved to Indianapolis after college, I never had, now there's because I grew up in Fort Wayne where your neck of the woods now. We didn't have a beltway, like a interstate highway around the outside. It was just like I-69 just shot through the city, right? When I got down here, I-465, the bypass, I would get on there coming home from work and it would be backed up and I'd be like, screw this. And I would duck off at the next exit and I would think all the side roads, because I was moving. I was like, oh, it's so much better. It always takes longer. It is always better to get on the highway that literally that slices the entire city in half. Yep. And just inch along than it is to make 400 turns and stoplights. And like, you just think you're making progress because you're moving, but you're moving like this, and you slam on the brakes, you're actually wearing your brakes out. You're getting worse gas mileage. You know what I mean? Like, you're probably more apt to get into an accident. Like none of it is good for you other than you feel like you're making progress because you didn't stop moving. And so you make a choice to do something because of your impatience. And the numbers is knowing what activities need to get done and what results you should expect. If you can focus on those instead of your emotions around it and impatience and all that other stuff, will allow you to make a lot smarter decisions about who you hire. Agreed?
Yeah. Well, when you shared that specific analogy, it clicked massively for me. How I do anything is how I do everything, and I literally do that on the roads too. So it's like, wow, where else is that showing up in my life? Everywhere.
Hilarious. Yeah. Well, let's roll it into. I lied. We started at like 3:33. We're going to go a few minutes long, but let's roll it into the last one here. So, we talked about clarity and focus. We talked about building a team effectively. And then I'll summarize everything really quickly at the end. I don't see any Q&A coming in, by the way, other than somebody asked what brokerage you're with.
Did they?
Miriam did.
Real broker.
I don't know, maybe they're asking who the baller you were when you said you were with a top agent.
Oh, American Dream Team Real Estate Brokers.
Okay. Cool. If you guys have other questions, pop them in. We'll make sure there's a couple minutes at the end here. And so the third piece I think was interesting for you, because when you and I talked about this and we were like, hey, can we boil down, let's pick 3 things, because I want to share your success with people so they have hope. And so they have learned something. And we talked about this. And the first thing you came up with, I said, let's save that till last, because I think it's interesting how it fits in. So what was that thing?
It was ask for help. Ask for help. Yeah, I've been very blessed with the people that I've been able to meet, but I don't believe it was on accident. Absolutely blessed. I don't deserve any of it, but I do have it and I'm grateful for it. But there's for example, Mick, my mentor as a realtor, it all happened because I was looking for these opportunities. Colton Lindsay, who's a mastermind that I've in, absolutely each one of these events here completely has shifted my life. I'm so excited for the next one too, because it just keeps getting more and more exciting. But it's asking for help and it's okay to feel stupid. It's safe to feel stupid. In fact, I've been very stressed over the last 2 weeks because of that event that I'm telling you about. I'm hiring too many people and whatnot. I'm hiring, but we're making it through. It's just the right amount of people. It's going to be amazing. However, I'm realizing that this feeling that I have here, even more now, is just a sign of growth. This is what growth feels like. And every time I've had this feeling on the other side of it, it's so good. So, that's a little bit off topic, but asking for help constantly. I'm constantly, I'm not afraid to ask stupid questions either. In fact, just along with that feeling of that stress feeling and associating with growth, I've started to associate feeling stupid with growth too, because it's oh, okay, I was stupid. I'm not anymore. That's a feeling that I have about me in the past, because now I'm not stupid anymore. I just got illuminated on that area. I was wrong. Here's what I know now instead. So it's a growth point.
We can probably work on the word stupid too if we're going to psychoanalyze you, which I'm into
I
that.
like to, well, and I like to hyperbolize it though, because like I am okay, and I see your point though, like the psycho cybernetics type thing.
Yeah, the
I
words we
ordered the
use carry weight.
yeah, I
You're not
ordered that
stupid,
book,
like you're
by the way.
unaware. You might be
Right.
unaware, or you might be
Naive.
misled, or naive, and talking about being hyperbolic. Not too many 23-year-olds even say that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, so that's actually I like that too, because I noticed that transition there, that this negative feeling that I have, that I'm currently transitioning into feeling positive feeling after this slight moment of like emotional suffering. I'm noticing that it's lessening. And so I'm kind of anticipating that the actual feeling itself is going to be replaced. And maybe not in entirety, like life's always life, but like as I learn how to deal with these challenges differently, it's being replaced.
Well, these
So
challenges, like it's interesting, and we'll wrap this up here in a couple minutes, guys. I'm going to summarize everything in just a second, but it's interesting to me too, like asking for help, like kind of being okay with who you are and what you want to do and what you need to do. And I was that way a little bit, even up until the last couple of years with coaching. Like currently, I'm coaching several people in my industry in my city who are friends and do pretty big things, are a couple of my current clients. And like I used to not want to offer, because I kind of think like we got similar businesses. I've got a couple of clients that have bigger wholesaling companies than ours, and like
in the local area.
um not in the local area, but I've got a client in the local area who's in real estate but not wholesaling that's bigger than us. And I've got two clients that have bigger wholesaling companies than us. And like they learn so much from, and I used to not approach those kind of people. Because I just felt like it's not really an imposter syndrome, but it's like you feel like you have to have every single category nailed. I have to be smarter than them and more successful than them, have more revenue than them, have more employees than them. And like, you kind of shape up who you are and where you fit in. And you kind of like, listen, I'm going to circle it back for you guys. It's that whole thing I said where you can really compartmentalize and get clarity on who you are and what you do. Man, I'm here to make big impact in people's lives. And it doesn't actually matter what revenue they have.
Your entire philosophy is on purpose too. We were talking about that yesterday about some friends of mine that like are just doing amazing in business and they don't have any of the KPIs. And so when I say on purpose, they of course have the intention of doing explosive things, but like if I were to ask them the number of units they're shooting for, like, and maybe they would give me an answer, they don't have the KPIs that you do though. And oh my goodness, if they did. So you being able to bring value to someone with a business bigger than yours isn't surprising at all, because it's just intentional.
Well,
Like,
anyone who's achieving success because of how hard they're working that's actually okay. If you just want to work a lot, I just think makes your health suffer. I think it makes your relationships suffer. Like there's just a different path to take if you want to get out of your own way and grow something. Like I literally could never talk about KPIs enough. You want to know when to hire, you want to know how much to pay them, you want to know what training to do, you want to know how much marketing money you should spend, you want to know how much revenue you should be making, do you want to know how to have consistent months? Like I could go on and on and on and on and on, like with 36 questions that everyone on here is going to resonate with, more than half of them, I'm sure. Every single one of those will be answered by KPIs, like literally knowing what activities move the needle in your business, in your industry, to generate the results that count, so that you can bottle that up and build job roles that you can hire to and train and hold accountable, and then have a profit margin that stays in place as you grow. So many of you guys on here, few of you guys have done a lot of business around here. You guys realize a lot of times when you grow, it's not the same as scaling, and you make a bunch more money and you were actually getting to keep more of it and were less stressed when you did like half the amount of business. Like many people will double, triple, and quadruple what they're doing and become more stressed. And like my original business was that way. Like when I did hundreds and hundreds of real estate transactions and had a RIA and a property management company. and I was doing 20 rehabs at a time, and I managed 350 houses, and I had like, I don't know, 12 or 13 agents on my team, all on my brokerage, and I had 4 different companies. I have all this stuff. Like the bigger it got, the more pressure it put on me. And every time I hired someone, instead of like being able to like chill and have like more free time and more money, like I got busier. They became an expense, not an investment, because I lost track of like exactly knowing how much I'm going to spend to get them to do the exact thing they're going to do or really closely to it, and what results that should give me and how much revenue that should generate. So there's a direct correlation to how much money I'm going to spend, how much I'm going to make with somebody, and what they're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis to give me like consistent results on the back end. None of that, man. And hustling is none of that. Like having bank accounts and having revenue and having money and having a website and having an office and a tax ID and employees and paperwork and contracts and websites and lead gen, all these things, none of that's a business. Those are all things a business has or does. The business is really a set of processes that make up systems, a marketing system, a sales system, and a fulfillment system that when ran correctly, certain things go in and that certain things come out, and you're able to make more money than it costs to run it. Like that is a business. Like, and that has nothing to do with what you do and who you are and how much money. That's why people take our team architects assessment and they fail it, gloriously fail it as a business leader, yet they've got a successful business. Like they're just not the best person to be working in their business. They've just fought their way through it because like you, they weren't going to be denied, but there's no way they're going to do that for 20 years. They'll sabotage it. They'll get burned out. They'll hate it. Or they'll train somebody to come in and be like them. They'll go find a mini. I had a bunch. That was an interesting mistake in my first business. I had 10 to 15 mini me's run around the office. I trained them all just to do. So what happened is I could only stir up so much crap myself. But when I got like 15 of me running around, all I did was stir up 15 times the amount. Well, they weren't as good at stirring up messes as I was. So like 15 people on my basic staff, not all the contractors and everybody, but would help me stir up, I don't know, 6 or 8 times the amount of messes. And then all of it needed cleanup. None of it was based on a system or a process. So there was always some problem. Like somehow, some way I had to be involved to like fix it, clean it, deal with it, or I had inconsistent results. And I know we went long here and there hasn't been any questions. So I just thought we'd chat for a few, but like, what's really cool about what you're doing, dude, and to kind of summarize this for everybody, and this is your last chance if you guys want to throw some questions in. Remember, the link is in there if you guys want to get any connections for the CEO Nation. It's theceonation.com/links. My main interest with anybody right now is trying to help from a personal coaching standpoint. And so if you guys feel like that's a question or something you want to talk to me about, let me know. But if I can point you guys in the direction of any kind of help with your business, let me know. But that aside, if you guys want to connect. But outside of that, to kind of summarize what we're talking about today, Seth, and what's been really cool with you is I've seen you go from like doing way too much stuff to getting focused. You actually understand who you guys are. Like like right now I could ask you how many leads how much money do you think you're going to spend in July? And you'd be able to estimate it pretty well. I could ask you how many leads you think you're going to get in July. You'd be able to estimate probably within 10%. I could ask you how many contracts you think you're going to have. You would estimate really well. I could ask you what kind of revenue, like you already know what June looks like because your pipeline's already basically built. Like you could guess within 20% of what your final number, the dollars that are going to come into your account in the next 3.5 weeks within 20 grand, right?
Yep.
And you also know who you're planning to hire and or work on in the job roles over the next like 90 days, really. And if this next move works, who's after that? And if this chess piece moves, if it works the way I think, I know what my next move is. If it doesn't, I know how to go back and that's what's exciting about the clarity and focus you have now. And then knowing you're only halfway there with building the team correctly because you keep bucking the system a little bit, but like you have a system to lean into and and then on the back, you're not afraid to ask questions. So the clarity, focus, building a team correctly, and not being afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
It isn't always just paid help. I mean, it's asking anybody, right? But like, I think we did a good job of giving people like
You know
three
what? And
top
I
issues.
would clarify asking for help and admitting I'm wrong. So not feeling good to be stupid, but like knowing when to admit I'm wrong, because I've seen like pride become an issue, and it's been an issue with me even before, but I've fought it. But I would say for me, before I had this deep understanding that I had now, I was constantly anxious, and that was because I didn't know what was going on. I still have those tendencies, and so like it's important for me to go back to it. 80% of this is definitely psychological, because if I did not have a good head on my shoulders, then I cannot execute a plan no matter how good it is. And so like that'd be another thing. I mean, we could probably have a top 10. We could probably have a top 10, but like if we had to boil it down to one, it's like KPIs, 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 KPIs.
Which
KPIs.
don't get
And
scared
get
about
yourself a
that.
good coach too.
Well, don't get scared about the KPI thing because it sounds so technical. It's
Yeah.
just tracking everything. It's just understanding what's actually happening. Like intentionally doing some crap and guessing at what that's going to give you. And then actually later looking back and tracking, did I do what I intended to do or not?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, I readjust my expectations of what that should have given me. And then I look at what I did get. It's this iterative process of like planning ahead, no like massive brain science, like just guessing at what you think you're going to do next week and writing it down, taking the minute to write it down, and then just do your week and then look back up next week and go back and look at the list of stuff you said you were going to do and which ones were checked off. And then you thought those 10 things you were going to do should have given you like 3 or 4 results. What results did you get?
Actionable.
Good or bad? And then what did you learn from it?
Yeah.
Like that's KPIs, right?
Actionable items for someone that was like myself back in November of 2021. I was very overwhelmed by the idea of KPIs. And it's exactly what you just said. It's just like, just do one thing and just write it down and then review it. And it's just like constantly do it again. Okay, one more metric. What do you need now? And then it turns into this thing. And now before I know it, I got a spreadsheet that has my whole freaking business on it. And it's like it's a roadmap of where I'm at now, where I was before, and where I'm going.
Yeah. I had a really cool coaching call today with some guys in Ohio. And they were like so proud because they were like, we just had one of our owners meetings, and every decision we made, every action item we gave each other was based on a KPI. Like we literally looked at real KPIs that we knew were right, and we double checked them and they were accurate. And then we knew where they should be versus where they are. And we made a proactive decision to go do something with our team and our business based on moving it from like 25% to 33% of this, or like X amount of, leads that come in, getting qualified. And they were like, man, it's just such a different thing that when you look at your business and you're like, oh, I wish revenue was higher. It wasn't where I thought. What should I do? Like, I don't know. Like
Pray.
people ask me all the time. Yeah. Pray and hope. People ask me all the time, like, what do you think? I'm having this problem. What do you think I should do? Like, I am literally like, I'm not guessing any better than they are. Well, probably a little, but like, I'm not guessing much better than them if they can't tell me the activities that generated the lack of results that they got. Like, I'm going to need to know, okay, you can tell me what results you got, but tell me what you wanted and why that's not, where is it off? And what activity generated that results? Like, how much marketing did you do? Or like, how many phone calls did your team make? Or like, how many pitches to clients did you make? Or how many, whatever, right? Like, we've got to have these underlying conversations. And so one thing I'll add here as we wrap up, I don't see, one comment came in from a good friend of mine here, Dave Short, he's like the number one flipper here in town that everybody knows. He runs the biggest real estate investment association and has a really cool business. And
hi, Dave. I've got some properties in Anderson. Do you know who I could sell them to?
He might actually. He probably would. I'll connect you guys in a text. But Dave is a flipper, and he flogs himself all the time about being his being in this business for like over 40, whatever plus years. And he always laughs at like the mistakes he made. Or he's like, I've been doing this forever. I've still all this learned, but he can't get out of his own way because he's a classic visionary. But anyway, he just said to be young again. He's yeah, he's like 3 times your age. But you're very young for your age, Dave. You're very young for your age. But I don't have any other questions coming in, so we can wrap up here. I do want to add this last piece that was interesting that you said yesterday when we were kind of pre-planning and it didn't come up today. I think if you guys are trying to take these notes and riff off of this, like one way that the whole asking questions applies to the other things and KPIs, like you said, Seth, you made an interesting comment yesterday. I'll let you elaborate for a minute before we sign off. You said that like, because of the clarity and focus, you're way better at asking for help now. You've always been good at asking for help. You alluded to it at the beginning of today's Zoom, where you're like, I ask stupid questions, I got stupid answers, but I didn't want to interrupt where we were at because we weren't there yet. Now that we've full circled on all this, the interesting thing is it's if all you do is ask questions, you have a leg up on someone who won't, whose ego, pride, all this stuff. If you go to a mastermind and you lie about your numbers, or you like, I see this all the time. Guys are like, oh, skip me on the hot seat. I don't have, I got something to do. I can't like, or I'm not going to come to the mat. Like I literally know guys that spend so much money to be in a mastermind and they will not come to a meeting because they don't want to get put on the hot seat. And
Right.
if you're not there to like show it all, just full Monty, get naked in front of everybody and show them every wart and wrinkle you got, like you are missing the point of a mastermind. And not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting everyone else that would have learned from whatever you said, because they're probably going through the same stuff. But you made a really cool comment that you were like, you know, with the clarity and focus I got, and with having a better team building, like where I actually know what to expect and who to hire. And I have this, like, once those components came in place, like you were like, you said something to me, like your questions are way more like legit or lethal. Like, you know exactly what to ask now.
Right. Well, and like an example would be, you know, a year ago, I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're not getting the normal number of contracts. Like normally I have money in my bank account right now and there's not. What's going on? And right now I could be like, okay, so it looks like my acquisitions is making 20% less, or they're making the same number of calls as normal and our calls are down. So like, then I could say like, is this a lead problem? Is it a lead quality problem? And then I could say, nope, not a lead quality problem. And then let's say I find out that it's something to do with my agent. We go actually listen to the calls that are recorded within my system. And then I can come to you and I can ask, hey, so I'm having this problem with my sales agent. He's having this trouble with this objection. Like, what would you do if you're training one of your sales guys? So it's like an exact question. It's like a precision question instead of like, hey, I'm not getting as many contracts as normal. What do you think I should do?
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Like one of the things we did for you, one of the biggest, and this will be awesome this will be a good wrap up point here for everybody. To get you on the path, I remember having this conversation with you, actually, a couple of versions of it happened over a couple months. But one of the things that's leading to like triple or quadrupling your revenue this year is we cut back on data spend. We cut back on your marketing spend. Like literally, we put you into a different, like one of the texting platforms. We moved you from one to another platform. And you had promoted one of your better cold callers and made them a manager of the other cold callers. And now they were like just wasting their time, not being good at what they're good at. They were doing something they're not good at. And you hired more people to make up for the fact that you had less production. And then when you had more cold callers, you had to buy more data. And literally one of the things that set you on a path of growth of profit and revenue was cutting back on how much money was going into the marketing and how much you were worried about all this data. Remember like having those conversations, and like, that's not normal. And KPIs do that for you. Like you wouldn't know to cut back on marketing when revenue is down. If you're like, I don't have enough deals, you would think you need more marketing. Mm-hmm. Like I need more leads. I need more. And then when you have more leads, you have more people. Like you had
right. That's actually a perfect example. Yeah, well, that's a perfect example because like right now, for example, like, I mean, think that this would be intuition, but there has been less talk time because there's been other focus in my business. Because at this point, I'm still one of the driving forces in acquisition in my business. But perhaps if I wasn't as aware with the KPIs that I do have, I would think that I need to buy a bunch more data. And that's why it's like bad phone numbers, or like I'd turn off a campaign and switch markets, even though it was working. But the real thing was just the leading indicator was down, and therefore the lagging indicator is going to be down. So like exactly. Yeah. Honestly, I've loved this conversation because I'm just so grateful to have all these realizations. All this stuff just excites me because like how I do everything is how I do anything is how I do everything. And like I apply these skills to all my life. I find myself like thinking about all sorts of things from like a KPI perspective now.
Yeah, I dig it, dude. Well, I appreciate all your time. And I remember you were like, I said, hey, can you jump on and we talk about what's helping you have the success? And then I put that little ad out or whatever. It said like 23-year-old, like how this 23-year-old kid's tripling his business and building a 7-figure whatever. And you were like, dude, that sounds like a training I want to go to. And I was like, I was thinking to myself, like, once you heard how I packaged it, you were like, man, I want to go to that training. And I was like, dude, you're living the training. Yeah. So I can't stress enough, guys, if there's anything I can do to help you, reach out. I think everybody that's connected to this knows how to do it. At a minimum, you're either on the Zoom and you're connected to us, or you're watching this in the Facebook group. So please reach out. I am here to make impact in people's lives, and specifically positive, lasting, significant impact in the lives of entrepreneurs. I want to do that. Seth, thanks for your time. And I'll probably send an email out with a link to the replay in the Facebook group, and I'll summarize the 3 things we talked about. But yeah, hopefully you're not a Facebook age guy, and you know, because I know it's for 40-year-olds, but we'll get you in the group. If anybody has questions, I might drag you into the Facebook group and try to get you in.
It's actually the only social media that I use. Like, I despise social media, and Facebook's great for business. So
okay.
Like,
so maybe we'll connect anybody in there, but if anybody wants to try
I'd love to be in the group.
Yeah, Seth, well, let me know and I'll connect you with him. Last parting shot of anybody, if they have a last chat question, no takers. Hopefully it's been good for you guys. Yep. Thanks. A bunch of thank yous. Cool. Peace, man. I'll talk to you in the next call we have.
Peace.
See ya, everybody.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the CEO Nation. Be sure to give us a rating, leave a review, and subscribe on iTunes. And to connect with Steve and learn more about this movement, visit theceonation.com. Until next time, take care, be safe, and live free.